All right, we're back.
Oh, we are back. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Talking Upstream. Literally, my favorite show that comes on Sundays right before and or after any other kind of talk show that I love watching. But I do love this one the most, and this is, obviously Dylan's on here. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Dylan was nominated Podcaster of the Year by the Scene Snob. So
it wasn't
you're
that,
in for a
that's
treat.
Okay.
Well, that's kind of what it was. So anyway, if you know us and you watch one of our shows or listen to any of our podcasts, you know that we are big time creators. We love to create, we like to make people giggle. We like to do a lot of things, and we try to create a lot of stuff, movies, TV shows, comic books. But one thing we never really worked on was like a comic stand-up routine, which is not really our forte, like kind of putting together jokes or trying to link all that together. It doesn't really kind of fit with what we do. But I think it's something we definitely should do, because I am, yes, but we don't do this together.
No.
And I think with your writing and my constant need to be talking, I think we could pull something through. But the reason that I'm asking if we can work on this kind of stuff, and obviously this is the stupid banter that we get to before our amazing guests, because I'm so nervous about this. But Dylan, would you please introduce our guest of the week? I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, so this week our guest is a multi-talented, just kind of all-around writer, talker, narrator, whatever you want, actor mix Nicky Endres.
Hey, hello. Everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for having us, just giving us the ability to chat with you. We absolutely are so thrilled with this. But for people that don't know who you are, for whatever reason, will you let our fans know what is the thing you're most proud of, or what people would kind of find you first?
Yeah, well, I'm an artist, but the official kind of slug line is mix Nicky E, they and she. I'm an adopted Asian American, non-binary, trans feminine, queer actor, comic, voice artist, and audiobook narrator.
Yeah, right on. And such a perfect voice for all of that as well. But for people that watch television, they actually would have seen you on just a lot of things, and doing a lot of research on just your past works, we saw that you were on a lot of television shows. You're pretty prolific when it comes to some of the best shows out there, like Pushing Daisies and even Drake and Josh, as well as Victorious. Like, there's a lot of really high quality stuff on your resume. That's amazing.
Thanks. I love the way you framed that. No, I mean, I am very grateful that I've my resume has great shows. I guess because we're kind of like sharks in Hollywood. I was just like swimming forward, always trying to move. So it's like, oh well, those were great shows, but they're they pulled my shoulder down. It's like, oh, but they're far away in a time long ago, and they're being rebooted now. They're so old. But no, but it's like let's take the joys and the wins where we can. And there were great people to work with, so that's something to celebrate too. Getting to work with awesome humans.
Yeah, I mean, those are the shows that really sculpted who we are and made sure that we were looking at the right things and trying to create the cooler content. So thank you for being part of our pop culture, which is amazing. Now, the one thing that really stood out to us, and we had another friend on, it was the Asian American Eyz'd, the immigrant comedy special. That thing is really doing very well. What was that like, doing like a whole stand-up routine?
It was my first time. I had just taken a stand. Okay, so the story. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, please check it out. It's called Asian Americanized, an immigrant comedy special. It's by 3 Asian American comics, my friends Anna Tuazon Parsons and Aiden Park, and moi, Nicky Endres. We self-produced a comedy special, which is basically kind of like 3 sort of funny one-person shows smashed in together to make a whole comedy special. And yeah, it's like Anna and Aiden met, I think, doing a play or something. And so they'd known each other, and then I met Anna in acting class. And for her birthday, we all 3 of us were there at the same time one year. And I met Aiden, and he's like, "You're funny. You should do stand up." And I'm like, I have no idea what to. And so he put me on stage at the Laugh Factory, which was my debut. At the time, I totally took for granted that was like a thing that is bragworthy. And yeah, I did all right. I didn't know what I was doing. For someone who didn't know what they were doing, it's like, hey, I've built my career telling other people's jokes, so like I understood how to say things, but my joke structure and writing for myself was still very uneducated. And I took a class, and then fresh out of that class, I was very excited about everything. And Anna's just like, hey, let's do our own. I'm like, okay. Again, kind of just optimistically yes-anding life and not really thinking about what that would take. And I struggled a little bit during the production because I wanted it to be good, but it was my first time. I didn't really have a frame of reference, and I felt like Anna and Aiden really took care of me as teammates and fellow artists, and we kind of it was a bonding project, and we I think the end result is something that we're all really proud of.
Yeah, we had Anna on. Their episode just came out this last week, and it was absolutely amazing. And we're excited to talk to Aiden as well. And that was one of the things that they were so excited about, was just kind of putting this thing together and making sure that they could highlight the heritage and highlight this particular point of view. Now, what was that like? Like, going into knowing you had to do a stand up, knowing that this was going to be a comedy special. What was your kind of thought process putting together this routine? Like, what was there like a through line, or just here's my life's crazy?
That's a good question. I found that there was a through line for sure. And it was a mixture of it being organic and also then becoming sort of a mission, vision, values kind of enterprise. It just so happens that the 3 of us who are already friends have a lot of overlapping things in common. So we're none of us were born in the US. We all came here from somewhere else in Asia. And and Anna and I are both moved through the world as women. Aiden and I are both queer. And we're kind of all the same generation. We're elder millennials, so we grew up in an analog world, but everything's digital now. And so sharing kind of all of that and our different how similar we are in that we're all Asian American artists in LA, interested in making diverse content and telling really human stories, but with cultural specifics. That as much as that's in common, we all have really different upbringings and experiences about how we got here. And so we wanted to talk about how, being Asian American is not a monolith, just like, any kind of marginalized group. But then also, like, we just wanted to explore how difference is a good thing, and how by embracing difference, we discover how much we're all alike at the same time. And so it was, so the through line then became, we reverse engineered it. We're like, well, what's our favorite? What's the art and the artist that we respond most to? And I think it was Anna and I who we're like, have you seen Hannah Gadsby's Nanette? Oh my God, have you seen Ali Wong's Baby Cobra? And we're like, I want to do work like that. I want to work with them. I want to be having coffee with them. And we're like, let's do it then. Our special will be like kind of the deeply affecting, like soul touching, based on trauma. I mean, it's trauma, right? Nanette, with the Asian specific kind of iconoclastic and celebratory Ali Wong style. And we're like, oh, we want both of those elements. So we kind of use that as a recipe book to be like, okay, well, let's use our own spices, our own flavors, and kind of use those as touchstones. And it really helped keep all 3 of our because we all like wrote separately, and then and it was cool how we were able to find moments to sort of call back to each other or allude to something someone else said. And even just in the order that we went, Anna's up first, I'm in the middle, and then there's Aiden. It kind of progresses, it builds on itself. So by the time Aiden's sharing his set, you've already seen Anna and I, and it's cumulative. I think and a lot of that was organic, but we're professionals. Like we had some intention in the crafting of it, but it was a magical thing for it to just feel like it was coming together,
Yeah. And you have such like a vibrance and like a great speaking style. What was that like doing like stand up instead of like, having a script and then being able to take multiple takes? Like what was that something you are interested in maybe doing more of?
That's such a good question. Yeah, I've recently entered into the voiceover and audiobook world, just kind of because of the pandemic, because the on-camera stuff was just, and live stuff was just dead, and I've really fallen in love with it. And so to your question, it's like I think the first feedback that I got when I started comedy, and as I continue to get narrating, like I just did a nonfiction, and I'm like, keep it conversational, Nick. It's keep it conversational. I have this erudite, uppity way of reading shit. Like, and like the way I talk is very like casual and colloquial. But I'm also very like animated. I stress things. I'm dramatic and showy with the way that I just am an expressive, artsy fartsy kind of person. Yeah. But yeah, when I'm reading stuff, I sound like a stuck up robot. And so even writing my own writing, like I'd be telling a joke and people like, okay, Nikki, you sound like you think you're better than us. I'm like, but this joke is about how everyone needs to care about each other. I'm like, yeah, well, change your tone. So my mentors, mentor after mentor, comedy mentors, voiceover mentors, audiobook mentors, they're all, Nikki, make it conversational. So that has been my journey. And it's helped in my on-camera acting. It's helped in my voiceover. It's helped everywhere, because it's not something I do on purpose, but I think it speaks to that insecurity growing up. And English is my mother tongue. I was adopted as a baby, so I only ever grew up speaking American English, but I still got all those microaggressions about people being surprised, like, oh, your English is so good. Or especially, I'm trans, so like you have a deeper voice, and there would be times where I'd talk to people on the phone at like a day job, and they come into the office and meet, and like, oh, I'm looking for like an older white man, and I'm like, nope, that's me. Like, and so it's just those experiences building up time after time for like decades of my life. I think I unconsciously kind of thought, oh, well, I need to sound like an old white professor man if I want to be taken seriously, if I want to be heard. And thankfully, I think that's not the case. And the feedback has been, no, Nikki, we want your crass, iconoclastic, like highbrow vocabulary, lowbrow delivery sort of flavor. Like that's what we want.
Honestly, that's what I want. I don't want another old white man talking to me about anything. Now, you kind of hopped into, I guess, Hollywood. And it looks like 2006 was one of the first credits I could find. What was the drive to be on in front of the camera?
Oh gosh, you know what? It's so corny. It's kind of a calling. I don't know what else to call it. I don't like to put a religious spin on it, but it's like one of those things that I don't know. It's like I always knew that I was an artist, that my expression and creativity would happen. It wasn't so much a choice. Like it happens in the way that I cook and clean and drive my car. Like, I mean, I don't mean like woo or insufferable about it, but I'm sure for you or for anyone else in your life who's kind of a quirky artsy type, it is kind of like, oh, you little space cadet, like you have to have a little flourish when you pull out your checkbook. Like I don't know what it is, but it's like a thing. It's a thing, and I always had that thing. So when I guess I thought I just subconsciously, now looking back, I want to attribute to my younger self that it was all about representation, that I had never seen anyone like myself on television, or someone almost like myself but not quite. So like Asian but not queer, or queer but not Asian, or queer but not trans, or trans but not non-binary. And so I thought, okay, there's maybe I'm overconfident, or but I just thought, like, well, then why not me? Why not me? You know, if I'm the one with the problem, why don't with this issue, why don't I try to solution it somehow? But then also, I think it was just I hated everything else. I didn't. I went to school for psychology, which I still love as a concept and as a field of study, but I like doing the actual science part and like the research and the data and the study design. And like, none of that was like fun or exciting for me. I just like all the pontificating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I suck at math. I'm just not good at like logic and math stuff. Like, you know, I'm not athletic. I mean, I'm a martial artist, but for me, because it's art, I don't need to be athletic in a classical sense because I'm training for something different. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if the byproduct is, oh, I have better endurance and get cardiovascular workout, great. But that's not what I set out to do. So like I have to trick myself into things. But I think I was always just an artsy fartsy person. And despite starting out with like visual art as my passion, there was I just the way my voice, my metaphorical voice, you know, we all have a raison d'être, or like a reason to be, a thing that we want to
Mhm.
put out into the world, or at least I think my belief is that we all should. That you know, like, because I'm an existentialist, right? It's like we create meaning for ourselves, so why not? And I guess for me, that voice, the medium of visual art, did not amplify my voice in the way that I needed it to. Whereas, you know, literally using my literal voice and the expression and instrument of my body, I guess, is where I found the most success in feeling seen and heard. And so I just kind of let that snowball into an entertainment career.
Now, how did you find that went? You know, like you obviously worked a lot. You have a lot of credits down there, but did you find the reception of what you were looking for to be the reality?
No. Like, I'm gonna be real with y'all. I am riding high on gratitude and just karma this year. This year, 2022, is the very first year in 17 years of being a professional artist that I am a full-time professional artist. And like, I don't have a non-artistic day job. Um, and I wish I could say I was making more money than when I had a day job.
Yeah.
But you know what? I have faith. You know, it's like starting a new business, right? This is year one of my only artistic endeavor, so like there's gonna be some building happening. But like it's I've diversified. I'm doing you know, voice work as well as like consulting and some other sort of stuff, and in addition to the on-camera acting and all the other stuff that I'm doing. But to answer your question, no, the when I came here, there was still heavily there weren't diversity and inclusion initiatives. We were still just entering the age of HD and digital streaming. I think like when I interned in Chicago at an agency like in 2004, like a year before I came out here, one of my intern jobs was calling the actors and telling them they needed to get color headshots, that black and white headshots were going away and everything was going digital. You know, so I came out here when and it was like HD, like there was like the makeup artists were all learning how to do HD makeup. It was like, so it was a state of transition. So I feel lucky as a millennial that was I think, I don't know if you guys are millennials too, but I feel fortunate that like my education and learning about new technologies like is in line with where I am at in just the growth of myself as an adult or a human being. So I graduate college, I enter into an industry that's already changing and embracing technology. So I entered at a time where there was a little bit more openness. Even if people were resistant, it's like, well, if you want to participate in the industry, you're going to have to adopt certain new practices, and that's just the way it is. And some of that undoubtedly helped me a little bit. And then certain shows, like I've got some Nickelodeon shows under my belt for when I was first building my under fives and co-stars. Because they make shows for youth, and so even in the early 2000s they were thinking about diversity and representing for the youth, and the what is now the Gen Zers, what it's like to not just have a cast full of really Aryan looking people, and so I and then just looking back, I guess, at how things grew. My very first guest star was on a show called Sullivan and Son. It was a multicam comedy on TBS,
Okay.
and that was my very first guest star. And it was also the very first role that I booked as trans. And it was the transition period. It was before Orange is the New Black. It was before Laverne Cox on Time. It was before trans identities and issues were part of a mainstream knowledge base, and even part of the lexicon. And so I was even just not totally out yet. All my marketing materials were kind of androgynous, or just as a gay boy. And so the audition breakdown, for those of you who are not Hollywoodsy peoples, the breakdowns are kind of like the jobs wanted or the help wanted job posting ads in like non-Hollywood industries. So they describe casting. We're looking for so-and-so, this and this and this. And I always remind my non-Hollywoody friends, you're protected from being discriminated against for your age, race, gender, disability. But in Hollywood, although technically, legally, we're protected, casting is all about casting you based on those protected demographics. So it's kind of a mind fuck, and oftentimes feels emotionally just demoralizing and dehumanizing. But it's the way it is. I knew that getting into it. Long story short, the breakdown said we're looking for like a drag queen, and like in the audition room. This is pre-pandemic time, so we all went into offices to audition. There were a lot of I think it was specifically Asian, because Steve Byrne, who was like the star of the show, the whole thing was about being half Korean and half Irish. But there were like a bunch of like not even drag queens, like dudes, right? And so it was part of the issue was, and where I'm going with the story is that sometimes and it's also in our special, sometimes we don't have the words, we don't have the concepts, we don't have the semantical ability to describe or communicate to other people what we're thinking or feeling, or just sort of have an instinct about what we want a story to be. And I found myself right in the middle of that. They had no idea how to describe this character. I ended up booking it. And I only found out later after, because on set, the casting director approached me and she's like, just want to say we're so grateful that we found you, because we had no idea how to describe what we're looking for. But you just came in and you were just a real girl. And then that was the moment where I was like, oh, ding, ding, ding. Okay, it's time to come out and just be trans IRL, because like that's how people are seeing the real me. I may as well just be the real me. And then I didn't work for 5 years. So, and then like I started building. So I've been building again. And I came out like at 30 or something. Like, I mean, it's like later in my career. And so just like I booked my first guest star and I'm like, oh, I've made it. I can start like working on meteor roles and do bigger projects, and it's almost like, well, by being true to myself, I set my career back to one, as we say in the industry. And I was just fighting for a one-liner here or there or anything, but people also didn't understand me. They're like, well, because I didn't have the words to describe myself, and they didn't, like, there was just no concept. If you can't conceive of something, you can't include it. So it was rough. And then One Day at a Time came along, and bless that whole production. It remains just one of the best work experiences I have ever had, because from the top down, the top level, like the IP owner, and like top producers, Norman Lear and and his team, and then the showrunners Gloria Calderon-Kellett and Mike Royce were so sincerely and actively, are still to this day, devoted to diversity, inclusion, and representation and authenticity, not just tokenizing, oh, we need to see it, but like, no, we need writers and directors and editors, and like we need crew and cast and everybody to actually care and lend their perspective to making this authentic human story. And I was the beneficiary of, you know, one of those jobs in their show, and it really it changed everything for me as an artist, and even just my belief that there was work out there for me, and that, and the hope to keep going, you know, the drive, that even if there wasn't, that, you know, there are people in this industry who do give a shit, and, you know, inspired me to take more emotional leadership myself.
Yeah, quick shout out to Cynthia. Love One Day at a Time. Now, Dylan and I, obviously, we are cisgendered white men, and we try to write a lot of, you know, projects. We write a lot, and the thing is, we try as hard as we can to be as inclusive as possible. You know, obviously, the way our brains work, it's like, well, this is a guy, and he's a white guy, and he probably has a wife, and you know, it really takes a lot of our time to take a step back and go, wait a minute, does this have to be a white man? And we have, like, you know, it is interesting, but do you have any kind of like advice for people that are trying to be more inclusive and trying to create more characters without it seeming like hubris or anything as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do have opinions on that. One, I think we gotta be kind to ourselves. You know, you write what you know. Your lived experience is your lived experience. And if you happen to have a lived experience with, you know, intersections of privilege, and we all do have intersections of privilege, that's just part of the reality of what you have to offer as an audience. It's not a bad thing. But I think that, as you mentioned, the awareness to not stop there, let that be a starting point, not the ending point, is also like I think the fundamental attitude. And then seek help. There are sensitivity readers. It's a job where people will read your script or your project, and they will analyze and offer suggestions, and look out for areas that are problematic or icky, or even ask you questions about, well, what did you mean by this? What's your intention story wise? You know, as opposed to whatever. I mean, because sometimes, especially if it's like autobiographical, or we're really close to a thing and we want to kind of capture the essence of how it happened IRL or whatever. Like, I've been in situations where someone was telling a story and they mentioned, oh, and then an Indian woman. And I'm like, okay. At the end of the story, I'm like, I thought we were going to go to like Bali or Delhi or something, like Bollywood. Why is it necessary to mention that she's Indian? Are you trying to, like, does she get a story? It's like, oh no, it's just that that's what she was. And I'm like, yeah, but if it's irrelevant to the story, or we're not building upon her as a human, it sounds racist. I didn't say you're racist. I'm just saying you might want to, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you can also ask a friend, but pay the friend. This is a big thing that we want to acknowledge people's emotional labor. You're getting added value by asking someone like me to look over your short film. I'm not going to do it for free. We're friends, and I know that you love me and you want to do right by everyone. So maybe I'll give you a discount. But like, it's the principle of the thing, right? Like, I did it for a friend where there was you know, someone comes from an abusive home, and I'm like, do we need a visual montage of the trauma? Because I feel like, outside of it's not, the story is about coming together as a family, despite coming from, you know, a horrid upbringing. Do we need to see the horrid upbringing to understand the bond of family? And if so, do we need to can we hear about it, or can we deepen the characters' experiences in the present by how psychologically that's affected them, without actually having the trauma porn of, you know, opening scene, someone's getting beaten up. Like, and my friend really took that to heart, and they're like, wow, didn't even think of that. That's great. But again, it's like, as a queer person who's seen too many stories like blatantly showcase violence, targeted hateful violence, it becomes what we call the trauma porn, where I don't think it's I think there are so many creative ways to tell a story that you can oftentimes tell like we have that whole rule of Chekhov's gun, right? Like, if you have a gun, it's got to go off, but then also it's like show don't tell. Let the audience, it's better if the audience is emotion, like it's the Jaws thing. If you don't see the shark for the first hour of the movie, it's scarier. Similarly, if you don't need to see someone suffer in order to know that they're suffering, it's more interesting and human to see what they don't show us. So I would say, yeah. So engage help, enlist help, and it's good for networking, because then you get to establish yourself and your brand and your work as something that as somebody, and your work as something that cares. And then you get to network with other artists and creative people who are aligned similarly in terms of brand values. And like, I'm very much into brand these days, and like the where I went to the 2020s, with so much self-created content and so much intense competition with everybody entering the streaming world. Branding isn't, for me at least, it's not even like a company identity anymore. It is, but it's, I think, for me, for artistic integrity, it's like the kinds of people I want to work with and the kinds of work I want to do. And because it's so oversaturated these days, I'm okay turning down working with someone famous if their brand doesn't align with mine, and make a lot less money or even do something for free with people that I look forward to collaborating with every single day and feel safe with.
No, I love that. I love that. Now, with all the content out there, do you consume content? Do you watch a lot of TV or movies?
I do, less so since I've been thankfully, #gratitude, I've been very busy. But yeah, I do. So, I've been a little bit pickier about the things that I do watch now, and so I always try to watch stuff that my friends or mentors or just people I really admire are doing first. Again, it's that branding thing, right? I wanna follow the work of people that I admire. But also just thematically, I find myself really drawn into anything kind of stylized, or yeah, I do always check out the fresh takes on an old thing. I don't always watch more than one episode or more than 30 minutes of the opening, because you know it can be hacky. But there are every once in a while things that surprise me, and that I'm like, there is some value in reinvention, I think. But I think my personal opinion is that it's becoming kind of hacky and crutchy. And we're selling nostalgia to people, and we're selling the curiosity of how to reimagine an old, rather than taking a risk on something brand new,
Yeah.
which might actually be cheaper to produce. So I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. What was the last thing you saw that really just made you step back and go, all right, I got to think about this for a minute?
Oh, a Thinky Piece. I love those. Oh gosh, I want to. Okay, if I'm being really, really honest, what? Oh gosh, it was something bad though. Like, I thought about it, but this is one of those things that it tests my own. I enjoy watching bad stuff sometimes, because it tests my own literacy as like a professional in the entertainment industry. How much do I know about editing and storytelling and blah blah blah? What was it though? I'm having a hard time. Oh god, it was so bad. It's already gone out my memory, but it was one of those. Oh, I want to stay positive. I won't even rat on it, even if I find out what it was.
I
Jeez,
thought you were
what's
going to say
the last time
Marmaduke.
I think, gosh, the last time I really sat down and enjoyed a thing, like watched it, didn't just like referentially try it out, but watched from start to finish with intention, was The Eyes of Tammy Faye, starring Jessica
Oh, yeah.
Chastain, for which she won an Oscar. first of all, I am a huge fan of Chastain. I think she is talented as fuck, first of all. But also just reading her interviews and everything, I feel like I work in a similar way that she does, which I really feel just it's just great to see someone so talented and so accomplished with such a fantastic career, who I feel like we could have an artsy little coffee together and like get along well. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So I so appreciate her. But and I realized that she worked on that movie for like 7 years or something. She had required the rights for a while, and just seeing the work, and everyone else too, but in particular she approached, my take on her performance is that she led so much with heart, that it would just for as an actor, just finding that emotional core of a fictional well, in her case based on a real person, well, and I did that for Anna Areola. um it's such a beautiful act of empathy, even if that person isn't like you or someone you would never want to associate with in real life. I find that the practice of that empathy for me as a human being makes me a better person. And so, to answer your earlier question, I wonder sometimes, if we're getting real personal here, I wonder sometimes if I didn't become an actor in particular, as any kind of artist, as an actor in particular, because in order to develop my own emotional intelligence and heal any kind of emotional wounds I had, I needed to choose a career where my job would be empathy. My job would be investigating and mining in a script all the details and the information I can to figure out what the emotional heart of a person is, what they care most about, why they exist, why they wake up every morning, why they want to. And I don't get super psychological with it, but it's that practice for me, I feel makes me a better human. And that's what I got from her performance in
Hmm.
Eyes of Tammy Faye, and I thought it was an artfully told story. And Michael Showalter, who I worked with on The Dropout, directed it, and it was phenomenal as well. So I kind of combined it, right? People whose work I admire
Yeah.
with the thing that was given to me as a side screener that I got to vote on. So
Yeah, I would do anything if Michael Showalter even
Yeah.
just kind of walked around there. I just rewatched all of the Wet Hot series
he's
again.
amazing.
The guy, just too funny. Now I talk all the time, and I rarely let Dylan get a word in. Do you have any questions that maybe I did not go over yet?
I'm curious, just based on having read your biography on your website and talking about your comedy special and getting your toes into having a voice and perspective. Did you find writing that has kind of like ignited a passion to write something else? You look forward to writing, adding that to your resume at all, or you think you're going to focus primarily on just being on screen for the foreseeable future?
That's a really good question. Right now, I'm very much concentrated on the acting. However, I love writing and I love literature. And I think that entering into the audiobook space where I'm reading books a lot,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've just fallen in love again so much with literature. That was my, okay, so background. Like my first artistic spark of talent was in visual art and drawing and
Yeah.
painting. But then I discovered writing, and I say this with humility. I think I'm a talented writer, but I don't love it. Like, not like, borderline dislike it. It's one of
Okay.
those that, like, remember that movie Center Stage about the ballerinas? And like the best ballerina had, like, she had a stage mom and she had to stand up to her mom. And she's like, "Did you ever think that ballet was just something I was really good at and not something that I was in love with?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Oh, poor me, I'm so talented." But the thing is, sometimes we do have a talent or an
Mm-hmm.
affinity that we're not passionate about. And for me, writing, I'm thank my lucky stars. I love literature, and that I get literature, and that it's something that I love as an artist. And it's just too bad it does zero for me to like create it. I love engaging with other great writers and being able to appreciate um their writing from a literary point of view as a fan, who studies literature but doesn't necessarily write. But the thing is, like, yeah, the special proved to me that I it would be it would be just I wouldn't be honoring my own self if I didn't write. But there's only enough time in a day or a week or a month or a phase of a career. So I think at some point I might get into writing some more. I'm still writing jokes at least, so I'm still coming up with new material for stand-up events. But yeah, I actually, if I'm the thing that I do like is editing. I feel like as maybe a story editor, more so than a copy editor, or like a collaborator with someone who maybe does the heavy lifting of the actual writing of scenes, but I help with sort of the macro of beats and just sort of like the philosophical sort of meta. Like I'm very much into elegant design, so my favorite writing is and favorite comedy is where it's just the meta, like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, or like, I mean, Hannah Gadsby is a genius at this, which is why I'm such a huge fan of hers. But yeah, it's that satisfying, sublime feeling that by the end of witnessing or experiencing a work of art, it's like, damn, that was good because the story was good, but the creation and artistry of making that story was also good. And guess what? They like reference each other. Like it's like that's like quantum like connection to me. That's what I love most about art, and that's my favorite art, I think.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Hey, good question, Dylan. Speaking of favorite art, one of the things that we do that we love doing is just creating content. So if it's okay with you, we're going to move on to what we do in this show, which is trying to pitch ideas that hopefully people like and see what happens. And I think Dylan won last week, so I'm going to let him go first. Did you win last week?
I don't remember.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I think I did. Anyway, sure, I'll go first. Why not? So this was just inspired by a few different things I had seen online, and I'm a big genre person. I like weird supernatural stuff, fantasy, sci-fi elements, horror, whatever. So after someone dies, they hang around their grave as a ghost, and they're kind of in a funk. Their family's moved on, their friends have moved on, the work hardly notice their absence, the world's kept moving. They don't have a whole lot else to do but sit on their gravestone and watch the trees age. But then one night, a mysterious figure in like a dark and sinister robe comes up, performs a creepy ritual, and raises their body from the dead as a zombified servant. So indignant now, the main character has to go around as a ghost to find a way to prevent the necromancer from using their corpse as a servant for all sorts of nefarious schemes and shenanigans.
Ooh.
Whether it's repossessing their body or just getting their body unanimated again, we can figure out. But
yeah, so
a ghost has to end their zombified corpse.
Yeah, so somebody stole their body, possessed their body, and they're trying to get it back as a ghost.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, that's cool.
Ghost versus zombie, why not?
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so
I think that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the idea that I have, it's kind of similar actually in a weird way. And I came up with this morning and I texted Dylan. Now I had this idea for this scientist that realized that their body is degrading. It's going away quickly. And they have the capacity to move their consciousness to something else, to a different robot or a computer. The only thing they have around is this sex robot that they have, not for sex, but just because they are into beautiful design, and so they put their conscious inside of this robot with the idea that this robot will be their body to help fix everything, but it is limited to whatever that
certain
thing has.
functions.
I don't know if they have like a fingered digits or whatever. So it's the idea of a scientist putting themselves into a sex robot, and then trying to engage with life as this. I'm gonna stick with that, I guess. Okay. Now, pretty please, Nicky Endres.
Yeah.
Which one of these two ideas do you think are fun enough to take up 15 minutes of your time?
Oh, okay. Well, in that frame is, woo. Oh gosh, this is a hard one. Okay, I'm gonna pitch changing the frame. Not so much which one is funner, but which one I have a stronger idea to build upon.
Okay, that's fair.
Let's go with the sex robot.
Yes.
Okay.
I knew it, Dylan. I knew it. Okay, so we have a scientist, and their body is degrading or something. Their body's going away physically, and they have the ability of moving their consciousness into something else. All that they have available at the time is this robot. Now, you said you had an idea to build on this. What was an idea?
Yeah. So my pitch for this is, let's make, what if the scientist is brilliant enough to transfer a consciousness to a digital vessel, because they have forsaken relationships their whole life and minimized the people who cared about them and wanted the best for them. So ironically, only at the end of their physical existence, where their only option is to go into a sex robot, they take for granted that people just don't use the sex robots to get off for fun, but that for some people, that's how they experience love. And so now he's a slave to a love bot and gets to experience, or is confronted with, all of the human frailties, vulnerabilities, shame, and kinks and private, intimate moments that he missed out on when he was physically capable, and all the things that he forsaken.
Oh, I love that. So it goes from like being a kind of sci-fi thriller to being like a character study, really, of someone trying to find love in a new way. No, I think that's
Well, and a
amazing.
psychological tragedy.
Yeah. No,
I
that's
want him
cool.
to be wrecked.
Yeah. Okay. So if we're building this out, we're going to start with this scientist person. Now, Dylan, what kind of person do you think will set up for this scientist? It would need to be probably like a stern person, right? That obviously doesn't
Career
experience.
obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
for sure, career obsessed. They've isolated everyone because they're pursuing some discovery,
All right,
whether
cool.
they are a roboticist or someone who studies how to. I mean, if you're doing, digitizing the consciousness is an old sci-fi trope, so they could be studying that. That's kind of going on right now. Like,
Yeah.
someone who is very focused on what kind of breakthrough they're trying to break through with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that. Now, Nicky, when you're obviously a very creative person, do you like come up with ideas a lot, like just kind of weird, stupid ideas, the way that I do? Now,
yeah, it's usually when I'm peeing or taking a shower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's always kind of like falling water involved.
I'd say there's nothing that gets my brain moving than some babbling water as well. So yeah, I can agree with that. Okay, now when thinking of this kind of idea, what do you see this as? Do you see this as like a feature film? Do you see this as like a short kind of a thing, or do you see this as a comic strip? Like, how do you see this so we can kind of proceed?
Oh yeah, the medium. I'm feeling limited series.
I like
Okay.
that. Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll do like
episodes.
like a 6 to 8 episode. We'll probably put this on like a not Peacock, right? We'll put it on like Stars.
Roku.
Yeah.
So we can get a little bit of a budget to it as well. Okay, so episode 1, we're obviously going to set up now Nicky, when you're reading your stories or watching anything, is there a style of storytelling that you prefer? Like, do you prefer linear storytelling? Do you prefer the 3-arc structure?
I love when form reflects content. So I would say I love asynchronous and the out of order kind of stuff when it's story appropriate. I hate it when it seems like it's just sort of frenetically thrown in there. Similarly, linear storytelling, it's all in, for me, storytelling is all about information setting. It's kind of like a joke. You're setting shit up to get a payoff later. So like, I like to kind of reverse engineer from the outside in. So it's like, what's the story we're trying to tell with this? Like my pitch is, it's a tragedy. So if it's a tragedy, there needs to be an ironic fall from grace, right? Do we want there to be redemption in the end? Yes or no? Because I feel like all of that sets up the first scene. It sets up the first episode. It sets up the opening credits sequence. It's Westworld. Oh my gosh, Westworld is so good at this. Like,
Yeah. All right. So, all right, Dylan. Now, if we were to do like say 6 episodes, if we do a 3-arc structure, right? Let's say, what do you think would be? So the first part is learning who this person is, learning that they are overworked, lacking just social relevance whatsoever, and then things are going bad for them physically. Now, I would assume they have to realize that they lost a lot of this out in their life. So, but that probably isn't the reason they did this, and it's probably just a physical reason they do this, right? So
Yeah.
once they're in this love bot, they are trying to. What would you say is a good push for this to get to where we're trying to get to with the story?
I mean, is their main goal to heal their human body, or is their main goal just like, if I don't need my human body, it's starting to fail, I'm going to take on an artificial one that'll last longer? Because I think that changes how sympathetic the character is, because I think there's a bigger challenge in sympathizing with someone who wants to abandon entirely biologic life. But I might just be reading into old sci-fi tropes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it would at least ask different philosophical questions about what life entails.
Yeah.
Through the story.
Yeah, I like that. So, Nikki, do you think that the scientist person should be trying to fix their body, or realize like I'm gonna stop being a human and see what the next evolution is?
I like the back to the body.
Okay.
It gives
Okay, cool.
Then we've got a ticking time bomb, and a chance at redemption, or a chance that everything's for nothing.
I love that.
It adds the stakes. I love that.
Yeah, completely agree. So we have this scientist. They're putting themselves into this digital form to preserve their body so that they can do some more work, take the time they need to take, almost like a self Mr. Freeze situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now I love the idea of them encountering people and then finding love. I think that would be a challenging story to kind of get into, but I absolutely love that. What do you think is a way that they can maybe encounter love the first time?
Yeah, I would love for there to be like an original sin sort of thing for this protagonist. Scientist hurts somebody, breaks their heart, or rejects. It's like, I guess, do we want to make it a romantic thing? They rebuffed someone who really loved them, or a familial thing, like maybe they abandoned their family. Some kind of thing that at the time they may have thought was justified, but like there's a lesson needs to be learned. And we need them to have, I feel like in order for them to learn about love or connection, or how important that is, they need to have hurt someone else by rejecting it.
Yeah.
Because it's a sex bot, let's keep it romantic. Let's not bring in family and kids.
I like that. And I like them maybe having like a partner maybe years ago that it could have been romantic, and maybe they misunderstood it and pushed that person away. And then looking back when they're like, oh, I wish I had a partner to help me. It's when they start realizing like, oh, that's what I was, kind of looking for, is this partnership.
Yeah. Maybe they have a history of backstabbing. So like we give them a few different things to show that it's a character thing, or it's a continual choice. It's a lifestyle thing. So it could be a romantic partner that's always been there for them, and as soon as they get an opportunity to like move to Switzerland and engineer this thing with this team, they ditch their lover. Or they have a best friend and they worked on a project together in grad school, but then he stole the idea and took all the credit, and so he betrayed the best friend, or whatever. some stuff like that. So he's got a history of being kind of cutthroat,
Yeah.
and egotistical, all for himself.
I absolutely love that, and this is why I love doing this show so much, is because I have an idea that I find kind of funny, and then I shoot it over to Dylan, and then he usually ignores me until I like work on it a little bit more. But you know, as we engage with other people, and we realize that as our community kind of gets bigger, and we start just interacting with people, our stories get so much better just by talking to somebody. You know, and I think that was one of the main reasons we wanted to do this show so much, was so that we could find people that we wouldn't come across in everyday life, and then just have a quick conversation with them and make sure that our brain gets bigger with the right amount of knowledge, and it makes us create better things. Now, this I think is a really interesting project, and it's going to take a little bit more time than what we have. So we're going to put this one on the back burner. And if you're you know, if you want to see how this is going, we do a live show on Tuesdays where we take these old concepts that we work on this show, and we kind of just really keep working those on with a live audience. So we're going to move that over to this thing, because I think that this is a project that we got to spend a little more time on, because I love the idea of someone learning or relearning love through their mistakes, through, you know, the inhuman ability of being digitized. So I think that's great. But
And I like the sex
you
angle. I think that there's a lot of fertile ground there that other people have shied away from. I'm a sex positivity and consent advocate as well. So I'm just thinking about the ways people could use a sex robot in ways that are not just I guess just exploring all the ways, including, you know,
Yeah.
beautiful and strange ways.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's how me and Dylan got started. One of our original shows was
With a
called
sex
Silicon
bot.
Angels.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I was
Actually,
asking if I could. I was asking if I could be his sex bot. No, we had the idea that you know, in the future, these love robots are going to be more prolific, and because they are technology, the IT side of that was going to just flourish. So we had this concept of like, what would happen with all these people that need help with these, you know, futuristic technologies and them going awry. So yes, we created the show about just the IT department of a love robot company, which we were making fun of a lot of toxic masculinity, and trying to break down a lot of like sex barriers, having these, you know, these men, you know, call and talk to, you know, women or whoever, and have to explain their problems. We thought that was pretty clever. But yeah, but this idea is really cool, and I absolutely love just what you've given to it. But more importantly, thank you so much for being such just a beautiful brain, a beautiful human, a great actor, and just a wonderful advocate for everything that we find important, and we're trying to make sure that other people think, well, push how important it is to other people too. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And you're welcome. Yeah, that's alignment, right? As we were talking about earlier. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for inviting me. I've had a marvelous time with y'all.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and we were so excited to have you on here. For people that are listening and watching this, where can they find you? Do you have Instagram or your social media? I know you're a brand advocate, so sell it to us. Where's your brand? Where do we find you?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram, but you can find me if it's at Mix Nicky E. If I'm there, then I'm there, and you're invited to follow and like. But yeah, the best way, just go to my website, and everything relevant to me that I would invite you to enjoy is all there. One-stop shop. Just my name, NickyEndres.com.
I love it. We'll add as many links in the show notes as possible. Please check out their Instagram. But more importantly, please go check out Asian American Eyz'd, the immigrant comedy special. It is phenomenal, and it really just changes perspective, and makes you giggle the whole time. So please go check all that out. And once again, thank you for being so great and taking your time to talk to people that are trying to do the things that you're doing. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Dylan, do you have anything you want to tell our friends out there?
No.
I didn't think so. All right, everybody, make sure you drink some water. They have been Nicky. He's been Dylan, wherever this is over there.
Yeah, you got it.
And I have been Zach, but you've been great. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Bye.